Welcome to the Social Podcast, where no discussion or debate is off limits.
Well, this weekend, Kamala Harris got a pep talk from Kamala Harris. That all went down on SNL on Saturday night. It's the last episode before the U.S. election. Now, the network, though, was accused of breaking the FCC's equal time rule. That requires that competing candidates be given the same amount of airtime. Therefore, NBC was forced to air a message from Donald Trump during Sunday's broadcast of a NASCAR race and an NFL game. Even it out. You know, you got to play fair.
Yeah.
So was it the right call for SNL to have Kamala Harris on?
Yeah.
Audience is 50-50.
Like 50-50. I don't know if it was right or wrong. It just didn't surprise me. Does that make sense? Like SNL does it quite a bit where they have the actual politician sort of surprise the actual actor playing said politician. So it didn't surprise me, but it did feel kind of like they were preaching to the choir. Like, who is this? Like, do you think it's going to change minds? What do you think? Who watches SNL anymore? Raise your hand.
I like it.
Yeah. I watch it the next day on Instagram. But
It's a great point. You know what actually caught my attention is it's a show that likes ratings, and Kamala Harris will be a draw, even if they are preaching to the choir, right? That's a very left-leaning show, generally speaking. So it made sense. Maya Rudolph has just done an amazing job being Kamala. So it made sense. What I actually thought is it coincidence or conspiracy that the musical artist that day was Chappell Roan? And if you know anything about Chappell Roan, she has gone from relative obscurity to superstardom, even though she's been at the game for a long time. But she is a force of a musical artist right now. And who is her fan base? Young women. And who is Kamala's fan base? Young women. And not only that, LGBTQ community members as well. So I just thought to myself, interesting, if you're watching, what are you trying to do? Maybe you're pandering to the people who have already decided they're going to vote for you. Or are you saying to somebody who's young, going, I don't know if I'm going to vote. You know, I really love Chappell. Chappell has endorsed Kamala reluctantly. But she did.
Yeah.
And so that to me was an interesting overlap, let's call it, between bases. There are 40 million Gen Z voters in the United States, 18 to 27, that are eligible to vote tomorrow. 40 million. Chappell Roan can really sway a good chunk of those.
Oh, that's very interesting. I love all of these conspiracy theories. I think that this is out of the 2020 Trump campaign election strategy, which is, on one side, you accuse the other side of not playing fair and cheating. At the same time, the Republicans are also saying, and they're, of course, creating a false narrative with these, like, partisan polls and also this, like, I think they're, like, betting. They have people betting on it, trying to tell people that, you know what, Trump's going to win. It's going to be a landslide. He's winning in every single state. So if he wins, they'll be like, we told you so. And if he loses, they'll be like, see, this is what NBC wanted to do. They had her come on a couple of days before the election. They want to sway the election. They're not playing fair. And I think that's what they're trying to do. And I also think that his ego is also being hurt. Because remember, he hosted the show twice. He has been portrayed on the show several times. So I bet you in his mind, he thinks that SNL, those are his friends. So why wouldn't they invite him on the show?
They said they did.
I know, but
they did. They said that they invited him.
I think he's getting a little butthurt because let's be real, we've seen almost every single A-list celebrity get behind Harris, and he's got Hulk Hogan. And I'm sure
he's got Mel Gibson. He's got Mel Gibson.
He's got Mel Gibson like it's a win. I love the way you said Mel Gibson like it's a win.
I'm surprised.
I was surprised that everybody is lining up behind Harris, and that's probably why they filed this. Like, this is unfair. It's like, no, what's unfair is what you're doing in this election.
Yeah, I would love to know about the amount of viewership that happened on SNL that night, and maybe on the subsequent Instagram feeds, versus during, what would you say, NASCAR race?
Yeah, when he did
I actually
his
don't
thing.
know the numbers on that, but he just aired an ad, right? So it's because we're in such a tight lead up that the rules start to change. You have to have this equal, my understanding is you have to have this equal sense of airtime. And what actually was interesting to me is that Donald is probably upset about this because the Harris campaign has actually been outspending Donald Trump's campaign.
Out-earning, too.
Out-earning as well. In particular, over the last little while. Now, there's some thinking that he's going to ramp it up in the next little while. But what's hard to also wrap your head around is this amount of money that's being spent on these ads, period, on political ads, okay? So according to NBC News, nearly $1 billion was spent over the past week. $1 billion over a past week. And so that the political ad spending for 2024 is expected to shatter $10 billion. Wow. When you just put that into context for a moment, think about what that kind of money could do to change lives. And this is all in the lead up. I'm just leaving that for food for thought.
Yeah. Oh boy, I don't want to go on because I'm still thinking about it. That was really smart what you just said. But we do go on this show to this. If you're thinking about traveling to space one day, you might not be good for Olivia Rodrigo. Because Olivia recently shared she always asks her dates if they'd get on a rocket to the final frontier. If they say yes, they're a waste of space in her eyes. So, yeah, that's like her red flag. If a man wants to go to space, she's like, no thank you. So is that a red flag for you guys? What do you make of this?
Listen, you know what that sounds like? I immediately was like, Siri, how old is Olivia Rodrigo? Because if you've been on the dating scene, I've been to the rodeo plenty of times. This is not a red flag for anybody. No one's thinking about it. I suggest that the next time she goes on a date, she should ask more pressing questions like, are you married? Is there anybody out there who's under the understanding that you are their boyfriend? How much debt do you have and why? And are there any warrants out for you? Like,
what,
these are the questions you should be asking.
What's your stance on choice?
Thank you.
Yes,
that one is a big
that's
question.
a big one.
Are you voting in the election tomorrow?
Stuff like that.
Very
But
important
hear me out.
questions
What
like that.
if guys who want to go to space is sort of this younger generation's version of the guys who like get big mufflers and you know,
think
like
so?
what if there's some sort of correlation? Like on one hand, like the space bros could be considered techie bros, culture, masculine, and our guys who do the muffler, like they're revving at the light.
Kind of the same. It's a power
It's
flex.
kind of a power flex. What if it's
You're
just
not wrong.
an it?
You're not wrong because if you take a look at what I remember space travel to be when we were kids, and people would be like, "What do you want to be when you grow up, Johnny?" I want to be an astronaut.
Yeah.
It's because it was such a wholesome, noble career. It's like Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong, NASA. It's apolitical for the most part.
Buzz Aldrin,
And
I think,
now
also endorsed Trump.
Okay, well, forget that guy. But moving on to what it is today, NASA, we don't talk about NASA anymore. We talk about SpaceX. We talk about Jeff Bezos. We talk about Sir Richard Branson, Elon Musk. These guys are now, this is the new rev of the engine. You might not be driving a Mustang, but honey, I got a rocket I could throw up into space. And so perhaps for her, that the idea of like space is this way to flex. We're not just seeing it from these guys. Look at the way that world leaders are flexing. China and Russia and the United States. It's like he who owns space controls the world. And I think that kind of bro culture, if a guy's like, yeah, I want to go up there, she's thinking Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, not Buzz Aldrin.
She's not thinking nerd.
Exactly.
Who just like loves Star Trek. I mean, what's wrong with that?
I think it's yesteryear. I think that's our era.
Physicists, like, I would love to date a physicist and just talk about string theory. Ooh, so sexy. You know what I mean?
Just for people who are working in aerospace, here's what you have to have. In order to go to space, you have to have a master's degree in STEM with at least 1,000 hours of pilot and command time on jet aircraft, pass the NASA long-duration flight astronaut physical. And if you just want to be a passenger, like these bro cultures, you have to have $250,000. So either way, it's not... This is not an easy thing to do, so I just don't think this is the right
Oh, because even if they have $250,000,
that's
not a red flag.
Introduce me to that guy.
You know why? Because Olivia's got her own money. That's why. She doesn't need their money.
Loves it.
So would you ever skip the holidays for a solo vacation? The New York Times is reporting that more people are choosing self-care and the chance to make up for lost travel opportunities during COVID. Do you see the appeal of traveling solo during the holidays?
Interesting.
Yeah,
You know, listen, I think a lot of people need breaks, and if you're lucky enough to get some time away, I know the appeal of travel. Would I do this over the holidays, like skip Christmas and go on a family vacation instead? Not in a million years. And for me, you know, I'm lucky. I like my family. My family's great. I know families are complicated, and the holidays kind of bring that out. But for me, we live and die by tradition, not because we have to, because we want to. I have a large Filipino family that's here on my husband's side of the family, the Italian side of the family. We go all out because this is the time for family. The whole point of the season is family, and we are there together. And this is a multi-generational gathering, and this is how you remind yourself that there is a life cycle. people go on, new people join the family, and this is the reminder, at least for me, I just don't know that I could live without my family, but it's the reminder that you're there to celebrate a good time, but you also have each other's back when you lose people, and we've lost people in the family. And to go through anything like that without my family around me, I don't think I could do that over the holidays. So for me, I'm out. It's family or nothing for me.
Oh, wow. I feel similarly, but for different reasons. I could never do this while my parents are alive. But the irony is, I think they'd be okay with it. In the sense that they might even prefer it. In the sense that I am the one who's putting all the pressure on the holidays every year. I bake, I do big dinners, and then I transport them to my mom's, and then I transport them to my dad. And it's almost like reverse selfishness, if you will, because I say I'm doing it. I'm bringing Christmas. I'm spreading Christmas joy. Look at how happy I am. And they're like, you know, we don't have to do this. How dare you? I do this for you. No, I'm doing it for me because Christmas is filled with so many complicated emotions, and it's nostalgia, especially when people have broken families like I do, and, you know, parents who don't see each other. So while I could never do it, I understand those who do. It's like creating a boundary, a line, and just saying, right now I have to put myself first.
Yeah, I get
you know
it.
what I mean?
I get it.
Like, yeah.
What do you think, Cynthia?
Well, I'm thinking about, I also, like you, I would never want to not be around my family, but I think there's a lot of pressure. And I think with people who have...
It's a pressure cooker.
It's a pressure cooker. Not only that, like the cost of traveling. If you boil it all down to the holidays and you have to see several different factions, I think it can be an expensive thing. I just wish sometimes we'd be less attached to the day. Like people get so attached, like it has to happen on Thanksgiving Day or it has to happen on Christmas Day. This is what's happening. Where it's like, what if sometimes we entertain the option of doing it
in January?
In January.
Yeah. No, I agree.
An impossible thing?
I know some people that do that.
I think that it could free up or at least be experimental, because what is most important? It's spending time with the people that you love, right?
How would your parents react if you're like, let's get together in January instead of December 25th?
I think my mom would be okay with it. I do.
Because it's just a day.
It's just a day. She wants us to be as happy as possible. Again, we don't have, and it would be a different story if I was doing it because I'm trying to get away and I never want to do it. Then that's a different conversation.
Well, this is a little bit prickly for me, and I'm going to try not to get emotional, but you know, this is easy to say if you know that you have family and they're all alive. But I lost my dad 2 months ago, to the day. And I know. And you know what? You can think about, you know, I just want to be away. There's going to be a time, no matter how messy your family is or how wonderful your family is, you're going to miss them when it's no longer an option to see them on those special occasions. So for anybody who's like, yeah, I want to do a solo trip, you can do a solo trip any other time of the year. And for most people, they only see their families at Thanksgiving and at Christmas. Take the time, no matter how much they annoy you, and see your family. If you are lucky enough to have people in this world who love you and want to see you and exchange gifts and hug you and kiss you and tell you the same story every year, go and see them, because when they're gone, you're going to miss them and you can never get that time back. So I'll just leave that there.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said.
Let's move on, because we just actually is kind of sad because another dad is gone. Legendary music producer Quincy Jones died today, Sunday, at the age of 91. The 28-time Grammy winner worked with everyone from Frank Sinatra to Aretha Franklin to Michael Jackson. So the big question is, do you have a favorite Quincy Jones contribution? Jess, I'll throw you first.
I do, and I'm going back early. In the mid-50s, the U.S. State Department asked Dizzy Gillespie, the great jazz musician, trumpeter, to almost collect a group of the greatest jazz musicians and travel as jazz ambassadors to places like Europe, the Middle East, and South Asia, I believe, Southeast Asia. And Dizzy was so busy he couldn't do it. So he tapped this young guy named Quincy Jones, who was 22 at the time. And Quincy helmed this massive 10-month project where they spread and played with musicians all over the world. Some of these musicians from different parts of the world who'd never seen a saxophone before, but they all got together. And then later, Quincy had this to say: jazz help us to build bridges and tell a larger story of America and of ourselves. And music and art allows us to better understand one another, to respect and value our differences, and more important, our similarities. I just love that. That he brought people together with music.
Absolutely.
That's true. For me, it was when I was 8 years old, and this amazing video with my favorite artist came out called "We Are the World." And who was at the helm of that? You can see him conducting it. There's Quincy Jones with some of the biggest names in music. You can see them all. Everybody was there, right? So obviously, Michael Jackson, Lionel Richie, Kenny Rogers, James Ingram, Paul Simon, Tina Turner, Billy Joel, Diana Ross, Willie Nelson, Bruce Springsteen, Cyndi Lauper, Ray Charles, Bob Dylan, so many more that I'm not listing. And even though that was the brainchild of Harry Belafonte, because he was inspired by the "Do They Know It's Christmas" version that had happened a few years prior in the UK, it was Quincy who knew how to craft the sound like he was conducting his jazz orchestra. That voice, this one sings this. And the way that it came together, if anybody has seen the documentary about it over an entire day, I think unless it was somebody like Quincy calling you saying, you need to come and join, I don't know that you would have been able to gather that kind of roster.
No, that's true. That speaks to his.
The whole thing was like, check your ego at the door, right?
Yes,
that's right.
Sure. Oh, yeah. My favorite one of that is always seeing Bob Dylan, who looks so out of sorts. I'm sorry. I know we're talking about Quincy, but Bob was like, how did I get here? What am I doing here? That was my favorite. For me, there were so many moments, and honestly, if we had to talk about all the wonderful contributions that Quincy Jones made to music, it'd be hours long. There's a lot of great docs about his life, but for me, it is Mike Jackson's Thriller album, which Quincy Jones was the producer. And there was a lot of things. First of all, they won 8 Grammys. I think it was 32 million copies worldwide, making it the best-selling album of all time.
Still to this day,
And it also broke a lot of racial barriers, because at the time, MTV is where all of the music videos were aired, and they were not giving equal time to Black artists. But this music video, which was the brainchild of Quincy Jones, broke that and made Michael more mainstream with pop music.
Yeah.
And it also changed and had a lot of people seeing music videos as an art form. But do you remember music videos before Thriller? It was a hodgepodge of nonsense comic book stuff. And he changed that whole genre. And more importantly, that music video and that album, it's in the Grammy Hall of Fame, and the Library of Congress added it to the National Recording Registry of culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant recordings.
Makes sense.
That is true stuff.
Quincy, what about you, Sam?
I mean, well, I will say that I loved him on so many levels. I loved that documentary. There's a great documentary about his life. And I loved how also towards the end of his life, he was just kind of like, didn't care. There was like sort of no filter anymore. He just said what was on his mind. There's a great article in Vulture where he trash talks the Beatles.
I remember that. We talked about that on the show.
So good. He talks about his theories around the JFK murder. It goes on. It's worth checking out. But I also chose from the same album the story behind Billie Jean. And I'll tell you why. Because it was an example of him being a leader and a giant in music, where he also decided to step out of his own way. So him and Michael Jackson, you remember the beginning of this song, it's this incredible bass line. And it's a very long intro to the song before you hear Michael sing. And Michael was like, Quincy, we have to leave it this long. And Quincy was saying, no, it's too long. It's too boring. And Michael was like, no, it makes me want to dance. And they went back and forth and back and forth. And finally, Quincy went, okay, Michael, you can have it. And that goes down as probably one of the most memorable intros to a music history. So again, his leave his ego at the door. He was allowed to leave his ego aside for
that is so
beautiful.
cool.
What a legacy. What a legacy.
Music legend.
All right, so Ryan Reynolds may be known for his humor, but Martha Stewart says that in real life, he's not so funny. During a recent game show appearance, Martha revealed that Ryan is, quote, very serious. But is being called serious kind of an insult? Maybe
I think it is for somebody who's a funny guy.
In this situation, it is.
I mean, they apparently live right by each other or right near each other, so she sees him a lot, and I guess he comes off as serious when he's taking out the garbage. I don't know. I wonder if Martha, first of all, has reached the age so that Quincy Jones has reached, what we were talking about before, where it's like, I don't care, I have no filter, I'm just gonna say whatever comes to my mind. And for that, I kind of like love this candor. But at the same time, I think that I wonder sometimes if people catch you at a certain moment and that they misread you. Like, if I'm caught in my head and I'm thinking about something, somebody might be like this to me and I might be in my own, like, so I wonder if she's caught him when he's like rehearsing a bit in his mind as he's taking out the garbage and he seems serious. I don't think he's serious. He wasn't serious when he was on the show at all.
When he was on the show, but what I will say is when he was on our show, he was the kindest guy I have ever met. And I will say this, he looked real good. Real good.
Good.
And you know what? He came here as an A-list actor without any entourage. He walked in off the street, the same door y'all walked into to get here. And he says, I would like to meet the hosts, before the interview, and I'd like to get to know them. So he asked to meet us, talk to us about our families. Do we have children? He was the nicest guy. So maybe, Martha, he wasn't being funny, but maybe he was just being extra respectful to you.
Yeah.
Oh, that could be it.
Yeah.
But I also love that he, just to sort of prove the point, he responded to these quotes that Martha said about him with humor. he tweeted, I disagree with her about him not being funny, but I tried that once. The woman is unexpectedly spry. She really closed the gap after a mile or so, which I just thought was fantastic. Yeah. Get it? Yeah.
Her comments, I know.
It's not funny, or I just had a terrible read of it.
No. Her comments are surprising and not surprising. They're surprising because as a public person, she knows the difference between your public persona and you being a real person, right? If anybody should understand that, it should be Martha. I'm thinking, he may be a very good guy in interviews. He was very hot to look at, but he's also a father of 4 children, and he has the lawn to cut and garbage to put out. And I don't know why she was expecting him to be this gregarious guy, because she's not like a fan. We see fans all the time always complaining on their TikTok. Oh, I ran into this celebrity and they weren't very nice to me. It's like, well, they were in the bathroom and you were trying to get them out of the bathroom. But I also think you're right. To your point, it's also she's an older woman and she's probably just like, she has that filter is gone. But I think her expecting him to be nice is the same as him expecting her to greet him with a pie and cater his Thanksgiving dinner. It's just be a weird thing for him to expect. So it's like, why is she expecting to be some kind of court jester when she runs into him when he's at home? He's not working. He's just being a regular guy, just trying to get through life with his 4 children and his hot wife.
It can also be that that's a very good point. It can also be that they're both funny, because I think Martha Stewart is incredibly funny, and I think Ryan Reynolds is incredibly funny, but their brands of humor, I think, are what?
She
can be funny. The roast.
At the Justin Bieber roast, hilarious. But I
Someone
don't
wrote
know.
that.
Somebody wrote that. I just met her. I'm name dropping again. I met her last week. There are the 2 of us. And you know what? She does come off. She's a very nice lady, but she does come off a little bit like a stern grandma. She's not all warm and fuzzy when you meet her. She's not opening her hand. She's not double kissing you on the cheek. She's like, nice to meet you. Here's my book.
There's also
and it's
something,
like,
can I just call out also, not that I'm saying that Ryan is a comedian, he's not like a stand-up comedian, but we've had a lot of comedians on the show. And you never know, the sad clown analogy? I'm not saying Ryan's like this, but a lot of comedians, it's surprising how as soon as they come out here, it's like, but behind the scenes, they can often be like.
Say your name.
Yeah.
I'm not,
we're saving it, Andrea.
Oh my God.
Andrea, we're saving that for the book one day.
There
was one.
There's been a few.
There's actually been a few. Listen, we've been on the air for 12 seasons. We've had so many comedians that we are so excited to meet backstage, and it is a wet blanket. And then they come out here, and it's like, they come to life. I get that.
But it might be, like, the empathetic part of me is just like, okay, I get it. Like, they're probably used to be like, do something funny, right? And that's really annoying too. Anyway.
But it's so much that I don't want to ever meet a comedian who I love again.
Fair.
Because heart's been broken.
Comedians are going to come for us.
We love comedians.
We love you.
Subscribe to the Social Podcast so you don't miss a fiery debate. Until next time, socialites.